Hey everybody, it's the Keychains podcast. I'm Steve,
And I'm Ryan.
and so we got to actually play some games together this week, Ryan.
We did. We finally got to actually play once more.
I think it's been a while since you and I actually sat down and played together,
Yeah,
and just kind of happened to work out when we were playing last week that you and I both had a seat available after a couple of our games, so we just sat down and beat on each other for 2 games, which was
we
pretty
did.
fun.
It was Friendageddon.
Yes,
No one
I
made it
think
out alive.
I think one deck did not make it out alive. The other one I think was fine.
We burned it in the parking lot.
No.
This is
I
the
don't
penalty for failure.
yeah, it was fun. I really did enjoy that. I got to play around with my new Ultimate Guard what I don't even remember the name of the thing now. Hang on, let me find it.
Is it the archive?
No. I don't know. I actually haven't even heard that one. No, the archive is one of the Ultimate Guards. That's the one that's 400 plus cards. It was a Super Hive. There was the Super Hive 550. So I got the not brand new, but a friend of ours was very kind and gifted me one of those Ultimate Guard Super Hive 550s, and that thing is sweet. It carries all my tokens. It carries every deck I own, even the unsleeved ones can fit along the top with the sleeved decks, which is super cool. He actually pointed that out to me because I was like, oh no, I ran out of room. And he's like, no, just take all the ones that you haven't opened and just lay them across or line them across the top. And I was like, oh, that's super awesome. So yeah, so that thing was super rad.
That's cool. It's funny, if so many decks and you only have 3 or 4 games in a night, it's why are you breaking so many decks? But at the same
Uh,
time, I never know what I want to play. So I'm like, I need all of them. I need every deck.
yeah, I think that's kind of my feelings too. I think the other thing that I might end up doing is I might get one of the smaller boxes and just
Yeah.
put a couple of them that if we're going to a tournament or something where it's going to be Archon adaptive or something like that, bringing I only need to have 3 decks, so I don't need to necessarily bring that whole thing, and that would get really annoying lugging around in an event. But
Yeah.
when it comes to game night or whatever, it's just fun to bring those decks in, or just bring them all in. And if you want to share with somebody else or say, hey, why don't you give this deck a shot?
Yep.
You can do that.
Makes sense to me.
I don't know what I'm going to do about Gen Con, thinking about it. If I'm going to bring that big boy or if I'm going to bring something smaller. I might just bring the whole shebang and
I mean, you could, and then leave some in the hotel room.
yeah. And then, oh yeah, and just migrate them over.
I guess just use that for transport.
Yeah, that's
and
not
then
a bad
just
idea.
migrate into a smaller thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out which of my decks I like and which of my decks I don't, and then despite how much I like or dislike a deck, which ones are actually good. So one of our games featured. So I've been as kind of silly and ridiculous as it sounds. I've been going through and just playing games against myself. I'll just take 2 of the decks and try to make objectively, tactical decisions based on the board state, as opposed to knowing, since I actually know what's in both hands, trying not to take that information into account. And my Richard the Scaled deck has been just crushing everything. It's just such an unassuming deck.
Yeah,
I think that was actually one of the ones I played against you and our friend Again.
Yeah, that deck is rude.
But it's not. It's unassuming. It's like Clark Kent. It's just oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And then he pops out of the phone box, the phone booth, and he's just like, "What's up? I got 3 keys."
Yeah, every time I've played against you with that deck, it's the thing that I found with that deck is you definitely have situations where your deck has turns where it generates a ton of amber in one turn, and then it has, when you forge, then you have this turn where you're just controlling the board again until you can slam down a bunch of amber again.
Yeah.
It's really,
it's like mini bursts. It's 3, 4 at a time, then control turn. It's like burst turn, control turn, burst turn, control turn. It's weird.
yeah.
Seeing it just work like that. And there's games where it was a key behind, and the opponent had 6 or 7 ember, and then it just came right back and forged a key out from underneath them and stole the game. It was ridiculous. It had the other opponent had I think 10 creatures out, and it had 1, and it just still came back and won. It was just a surprisingly solid deck.
And then between the 2 miasmas that deck has and the too much to protect,
Yep.
you can turn off. That's turning off 3 turns right there for somebody.
Yeah. Well, and then there's there's an old Bruno, there's Relentless Whispers, there's just a lot of like death by 1,000 slightly medium-sized cuts.
Yeah. Yeah, the Untamed side's pretty gross too with the Witch of the
Yep.
Eyes, and then you have Way of the Bear and Way of the Wolf in that deck. Not
Yep.
that I mean, it does actually contribute a lot to that control element, because now you can put a skirmisher out there that could be anything, and then like has a Mantle of the Week as well, so you can drop the Mantle of the Week on something that has Way of the Wolf on it, and now you just have this like, or Mass Asp, like it has that, so there's your combo right there. But
Yep.
wait, well, I mean, Mass Asp already has skirmish, so I guess maybe that's not the best
No, but the
play.
mantle allows it to go every turn. So
God, Mantle's so rude with that Mass Asp.
and then if it's got a big twig, so you can put mantle on big twig, and now you're reaping and stunning every turn.
Yep.
It's just a lot of rude little mini synergies that all come together really well. So my concern is that our meta isn't necessarily top tier tournament level meta, and not that there's and everyone's running around with terrible decks, but like I'm interested to see how it does, and maybe one of these days I got to just go on a Crucible bender and play a bunch of games in the competitive rooms and see how it does. Because it does have its flaws. It doesn't have any way to deal with artifacts. It doesn't have mass removal. So if someone gets like a really lockdown, control-y board state, then it's going to have an uphill battle from there. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what it does.
Yeah, it's like Poison Wave is like your closest option there, and that's
Right.
2 damage, so it's not.
Not
I mean, you
ideal.
need to have beaten down a lot of things beforehand.
Yeah.
I mean, it does also have Mighty Lance in it, which is an action. You play deal 3 damage to a creature, and then 3 to a neighbor of that creature. I mean, so that's not bad, but
we've rattled off like 10 card names. I like how now you're like, oh, we've probably described one of these.
I think a lot of the people who are listening to us have an idea of what Miasma and Too Much to Protect do at this point. Seeing
I guess I gave the name of the deck, so if you want to go, it's Richard the Scaled, and you can just look it up, and the cards that are in it are right there.
I mean, I feel like Mighty Lance is just one of those cards that not a ton of people have seen.
Mighty Lance is solid.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's surprisingly solid. Yeah, it's just an all around workhorse.
Yeah. So we also learned very, very quickly that making sure that you're only manipulating your own Ember tokens while playing together is probably a smart idea.
Yeah,
that you bought that new starter set.
I know. I just talked last episode about how like I thought it was funny. Oh, I got this new starter set. Now I've got my own Ember tokens, and then I go and I play one time with it, and I'm like, oh, I hate the fact that I have my own Ember tokens, because like if I'm capturing from my opponent, I got to remember that I captured from them, or if I steal from them, I have to like, well, no, I want to take my Ember and I'll put yours away, but got to make sure you do it the same for both of them, because what I don't want to do is walk out at the end of the night with like 5 extra Ember tokens that I've inadvertently taken from someone else and have them short on their Ember supply. So I gotta make the change and find an alternative Ember token, which I think I have a couple options floating around the house, so I'll grab one of those. But I think you, Steve, have come across your own alternative.
Yeah, I did the thing that I said I was going to do last episode, and I just bought all of the strategic Dino stuff that I felt I needed. I didn't replace all of my things with strategic Dino stuff. Don't worry, Steve. Eventually, I'll get there. But I ended up picking up I picked up the unique Amber Shards because I just liked the way they look. He did such a good job on those, and I know I'm just sitting here like pumping him up again, but he just does a fantastic job. I bought the stun tokens and the power tokens because I just got tired of the cards, and I just don't want to wait till Age of Ascension to get the new tokens. And then I bought the keys because I just love those things. So
yeah, it's fair enough. Well, and it's okay that we're plugging Strategic Dino here, because if you caught our last episode, you know that we had a giveaway. As of the time of this recording, it's still going. We've got some retweets on Twitter for it. And we're going to be doing another giveaway at the end of this episode for the other tokens that he provided with us. So stay tuned to the end, and we will be giving you more information about how you can win some of that as well.
Yep. And this one's just all stun tokens. So
yep.
they look great. Once we get this settled up, I'll get those shipped out. So that'll be awesome.
So speaking of winning things, such as prizes, Steve, what have we heard from Fantasy Flight Games?
A bit actually. Finally. Well, that was rude.
Hey, no, it's fair. They're it's a new game. They're a small fly by night company, and
I think it's just like by my meaning finally is that the Vault Tour stuff's been talked about so much. It's kind of finally nice to see what exactly they're looking at.
yeah. Why are we playing? Why are we attending these events besides just playing Keyforge, which is a good incentive, but not an incentive to fly across the country necessarily. So what else are we getting? What's our swag for this?
So I think that we've seen a lot of it, and I think we've talked a lot about the different things that you possibly could run into during these events. They've kind of hinted at certain things. So a lot of the things that they've hinted at were the house themed chain cards, which we've seen a bit. But these are not the ones that they were showing off in the uh, OP kits that you can get. These actually are like Vault Tour branded ones, which have like dual or tri arts on them, which is really cool. So a couple of them, they have the Time Traveler Help from Future Self split card that then has like the Vault Tour logo on it. Looks really, really cool. They have the different Scalds from Brobnar on one of them. There's a couple of Mars ones, and then there's a Shadows one as well. It just looks like there's the Shadows one looks like it has Fagin, Umbra, and Urchin on it, and don't know what these cards are from Mars, so I apologize. But there's definitely a Mars one there too. So the other thing that they're pulling up are deck boxes as well, which I think this might have been hinted originally, but they didn't really show anything until now. And those look really, really cool. There's a time like same kind of deal. It's the same arts on those where there's a time traveler one. There's an Umbra one. They also have the Vault Tour branding on them, which also has like the year associated with it. So that's kind of like a cool, like, I went to a Vault Tour this year and
Oh,
got these fun things.
that's cool. I didn't realize that. So it's like a souvenir kind of thing. That's really cool.
Yeah. So then the one thing that they talked about, in which a lot of the OP kits have these as prizes as well, is they're doing playmats, but these are specifically Vault Tour branded playmats. So same concept where they have like the dual tri art. But the one neat one that they have is they have a horseman one that has all four horsemen kind of segmented off in this really cool pattern. And then right in the center is the Vault Tour logo. So that looks super cool.
Yeah, it does.
So the other thing that they're doing to kind of go along with this is, I'm guessing if you have a lot of Ember, or if you have enough Ember for this, you can get all three of a house. So you get the playmat, the deck box, and the chain tracker card all in one shot, which is super cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if they'll do any kind of like if you get all three, it's slightly cheaper than getting them individually, but
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine. Well, no, they definitely said they're doing sets. I don't know what the
oh
cost
yeah,
difference would be.
if there even
That
is
so
one.
that's I guess one good clarifying thing here is they haven't really said anything about like what the conversion rate is going to be. My hope is that it's kind of like one shard. Like, this is me speculating, so don't take this as like face value. But this is just what my, I guess, my very bad logic, my very, very bad economics brain is going to assume. But what I'm assuming is like the conversion rate is going to be like an amber shard probably would equal like $1, because I feel like, I mean, this is
In
me being
terms of
incredibly hopeful, but like, yeah, like 25 amber shards getting you a playmat, $25.
yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, are they? Is it? I guess yeah. I guess you would do shards and not keys,
They have said amber shards when it comes to purchasing things.
right? So that
Um,
makes sense then.
yeah, so I don't know. I don't necessarily know what the keys are for. I don't. At least I haven't seen anything. If someone
I
has
think it's
seen
just a
something,
tracking mechanism.
it might
I
be.
don't know.
It might absolutely be. I just don't know yet. If someone does have can point out where they might have heard something about what the keys are for, definitely shout out at us, because I'd be interested to know. There's one other playmat that they're going to put up, which is like a learning playmat, which is a thing that I kind of do really, really like one of my few, like one of my playmats that I rotate every now and then into our Magic play is a mat that actually has like all the different zones laid out for you, just because like it's aesthetically pleasing to my brain. So they have one that'll have like a space for your identity card, your deck, the discard pile, the three keys, and then your battle line. and then kind of like a no man's land area for artifacts and whatnot. And that's also Vault Tour branded with a bunch of card art on it and things like that. They're also doing metal keys. So I mean, we've seen the metal keys that came in the OP kits. These will be Vault Tour branded. So these will also be Vault Tour branded keys, which will be pretty cool. Then they have the kind of usual fare of hoodies, t-shirts, baseball caps, beanies, and like a messenger bag. Like those are, I mean, I'd expect that. Like that seems like stuff that you'd definitely have on a prize wall. But then we start getting into the weirder things, and I don't actually think that this is where this all ends. They at least hinted that this is not where it all ends. So we'll see.
Yeah, in the latest Crucible cast, they had the and I feel awful because I can't remember his name now, and I should have put it in the show notes. But in the last Crucible cast, they talked about the organized play guy was talking about how they're going to be constantly evaluating new prizes and new swag and what they're going to put on the prize walls. So I expect that in addition to just different kinds of art and different configurations of playmats, we'll also see just different stuff. Period.
It was Alex, by the way.
Alex, thank you. All right, so Alex.
So yeah, so the weirder things that are coming into this is and these are not final either. So they are releasing uh gamer chairs, which they are I can't remember the name of the brand of this company. It looks familiar. I don't know if this is the actual uh branded version of these chairs, but they are Keyforge branded. But they are the high back rolling chairs that use the rollerblade wheels as the bottom wheels for the chair. Um, and they generally have like the house color. Well, at least the one example that they've put up is one that has like a Sanctum logo in the headrest part, and then it's like a black and yellow chair from there, which is neat. I don't know how many amber shards that's going to cost, but if I mean if you think about if we go back to that conversion rate that I just made up, if you're talking $1 per amber shard, let's see. I'm gonna do some fast math here. I can't imagine that they're going to be like the Titan chairs that are like $450. So let's just say 70. Amazon's got a gaming chair for $80. I feel bad I'm doing this math because that doesn't make sense, but if you think about that, like a dollar per deck, if we're doing that conversion rate, we're talking like if we're just talking about through buying decks, $800, right? Is that like
Yeah.
$10 a deck, right?
Yeah.
So
So it's like trying to play skee ball to win a gaming chair. Like it's not a great exchange rate.
but I mean, it's the difference there is like you can get amber shards without really
Even
paying money.
even at like $2 or $3 worth of value per ember shard, like that's still a sweet deal for for Fantasy Flight Games.
Yeah, I mean, it's all yet to be seen. Like this is just us
Yeah.
speculating. Like that just seemed to be like based on the prizes that they were giving away. Like it seemed to be like the easiest things you could do. Although a lot of people were saying, going to certain events, like you're able to net at least 6 amber.
Chainbound, yeah, I mean chainbound events, even at your like local gaming store, chainbound events give you amber shards. So I don't know. I honestly we our RL just had a little bit of trouble trying to get their gem software downloaded and installed and everything. So we're still trying to work with them to get chainbound stuff hosted. So I don't know firsthand how many ember shards you get for participating. But even if it's just one per event, you could conceivably be getting 6 or 7 of those a week if you keep bouncing between stores.
Yeah.
So I mean, that plus the decks that you buy, I mean, you could be up there on ember shards by the time you end up going to a vault tour. So I think that ascribing $1 value to each shard is not unreasonable, given how many shards people could potentially get.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like if you want to get the things, you can like the avenues of getting the things are there without having to spend a ton of money to do so. But even still, again, like I said, don't take anything, like take everything that we just said about like the ember shard economy with a grain of salt. Just us speculating.
So with there I think there was one more too that we didn't mention.
Yes, there is. This one is probably the most ambitious one.
It's definitely weird, but not in a bad way. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it just it feels ambitious.
Yeah.
So the last thing that they've announced that they're doing, which there's no images of this. It was all just mentioned off. In the article that they posted is a game table from Geekinson Tables. I had actually not heard of them before, so when I saw this, I went and looked them up. They're a UK-based company that they do ship worldwide. So don't let that scare you away. At least based on what I've seen, they are. Yeah. Yes, I'm not gonna attempt to pronounce it because I will get it wrong, because I'm from New England and that is Worcester, so it's Worcestershire. Shire? No,
Worcestershire.
Shire. Well, you know what? You know what I mean. I'm not.
Worcestershire, like the sauce.
Yeah, I guess it's
That's
fair.
probably exactly how it's pronounced.
I'm sorry, our UK listeners. I apologize. I do know that Derbyshire is what it's called in the Midlands there. So I do know that.
You got one.
I got one.
You're a one for two.
Oh no, It is not Nottingham. It is Nottingham. So that's the other thing
Yep.
that I know.
I learned that from Robin Hood.
That's fair. I learned that there because a lot of people yelled at me when I was there.
Trial by fire.
So yeah. So I mean, it's exciting. It's exciting stuff to see. It's definitely. There were some things in there like that. I was like, yep, okay, that's sure. And then I was like, wait, what? So like the gaming chair and the game table was definitely like moments of like, okay, these are probably not prizes I'm ever gonna see. Who knows? Maybe I might. Might go for it. But
I could see. I think that my order of like if I went to an event and stuff was going to get sold out, the order I'd expect to see it get sold out in is metal keys, play mats, deck boxes, and then maybe a tie between some of the apparel. Maybe like the messenger bag might be neat, and the chain tracker cards, probably a tie between those two, and then game chairs, and then gaming table would probably be the last thing to sell out.
Yeah, I think that the chain tracker cards are going to be so like that's like such a easy in for them, and it's going to be super popular. Say what you will, but like it's going to probably be the easiest thing to get, and it's also going to be like, hey, it's this cool thing that I can bring to my my LGS when I go back home or whatever.
You know what though? I don't like tracking chains on a card. Like the whole point of not using dice in this game is that they're too easy to bump and change the number, change the value, which is a very important number. And chain tracker cards seem to fly in the face of that, where you have just a little cardboard token on top of a card and that can get slid and get bumped like super easily. And chains are really important. Like the difference between 2 chains and 3 chains can like win or lose the game, potentially.
So I did have one idea that I wanted to attempt, but I just don't think I have the time to do it. Is I was going to use my 3D printer to print out a change tracker card holder, because like the art is so nice. Like I want to be able to see that art on the Vault Tour cards and the OP cards. It'd be nice to.
It's a shame not to use them.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be a shame not to. So I wanted to have like a way that you could slide the card in there, and then you'd still be able to see the art, and then you just move like one of those educational cubes that you've been using for Amber for a while, and just move those along that track. But
right.
But the real idea here is using clear acrylic, because then you could really pull that off. Because like clear PLA on 3D printers still doesn't necessarily come out like clear. Well, at least the PLA that I've used, and I'm sure that you could probably, there's some sort of material out there that probably will do exactly this. Just like I think the assembly aspect of putting clear acrylic together to make that change tracker card holder would be super cool. So free idea to anybody with a 3D or a laser cutter.
with the wherewithal.
Yeah, and the desire to do it.
Because there's a lot of other change trackers out there. I know that like some of them are dials, some of them are like almost abacus looking. So there's other options too if you don't want to go the chain card route.
Yeah,
But like
definitely.
you said, they're great art. They're really cool, unique cards. You win it or you earn it through your Ember Shards, and it's a shame not to be able to really use them. I mean, obviously you can use them. They're tournament legal. You're totally allowed to use them. But I wouldn't trust it. You know, if my opponent had one and this was not a friendly game, like, well, I guess every game is supposed to be friendly,
Yeah.
but if it if there was something on the line in the game, I'd be concerned with them using those chain cards. Not because I would worry about them like cheating or anything, but like just bump the table, someone walks by, someone puts their drink on the table a little firmly, and you know it can shift just enough to be like, was I on 4 or was I on 3? And you know it would really suck to have a game end in a way where that one chain made a difference,
Right.
because then you don't get that purity of the real, you know, how the game should have gone.
Side tangent. I've gotten really, really good at remembering my chains, and a lot of people who have been talking about chains say that the way that they remember is they put the whatever they're using to track their chains right on top of their deck, so
Definitely
they can just when they have to move that before they draw
draw a
cards,
card,
right?
yeah. So I've been using damage counters, and I put the number of chains I have in damage counters on top of my deck, and then that way, like you said, when I go to draw a card, I, you know, remove one, draw the one less cards every time.
So what I had been doing is I put the change tracker card. So I flipped where my discard pile and my deck were. So before I would always have my discard pile on the right hand side of the deck, and then now what I've done is I've moved that discard pile to the left hand side of my deck, and then I put the change tracker card right on the right hand side of my deck. So when I go to look to draw the card, my because I'm right eye dominant, so that helps. Is the moment I look to the right, the first thing I see before I draw a card is that change tracker
Is your
card.
chain.
So I'm like,
So
oh,
you
I
so
draw my cards and then I push it down one.
so you have your setup so that the change card, because I don't know if you keep your deck on your right or your left, which changes literally the opposite of what you said.
It does.
So you have it set up so that your chain, it goes you as a person, your chains card, your deck, your discard
Nope,
pile.
the other way around. So it is
Other way
my
around.
because I put
So the
my deck.
furthest thing away from you
Yeah.
is
So
the this. Oh,
yes.
okay. Is the
Yeah.
gotcha.
So it's my discard pile, my deck, my chains tracker card.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Because the moment I look down, like my head's going right towards that general area, and then I just see that,
Right.
oh, I have chains. Right. I remember I cast heated or
No, that makes
gateway to
sense.
dis, and so okay, move that
Yeah.
down. And
I mean, you know, whatever works for you.
yeah, no, it's been working great actually. It's just
Yeah.
I get why people want to have that like physical action to remember to move that thing before they draw their cards.
Yeah.
But this has been working out for me just fine.
Yeah. Makes total sense.
So speaking of Alex, to circle all the way back to when we mentioned Alex's name probably like 10 minutes ago, he didn't ask me anything on Reddit, huh? And so
He did.
I actually had I did not have enough time to go through all of this, so I've read through a good majority of the preparation material that you provided me, but it's a lot of this I'm still trying to like process through. So I'm gonna let you run away with this.
So Alex didn't necessarily answer every question, but he answered all the ones that you know, I'm sure that he could or that he had answers to. I'm sure there's a lot of things that he couldn't really speak about. You know how gaming companies or companies in general kind of play their cards close to their chest. But
Yeah.
where they you know, there's announcements that are going to be coming up. There's things that aren't 100% confirmed yet, so some questions you just can't necessarily answer. So that having been said, I kind of picked most of the ones that got answered. I left a few out, but I tried to pick the ones that seemed like they have more of a news element, something that we might not have expected. I don't have these verbatim, and I don't have the usernames, mostly because I did not have a ton of time to do so. But we'll just jump right into these. So someone asked, they don't think they can make Vault Tour events. So would there be any way that they can spend their Emperor Shards on prizes at non-Vault Tour events? Is there going to be anything for that? And Alex said yes, there will be some non-Vault Tour events that will have prize options available. He did not say all non-Vault Tour events. He didn't specify which non-Vault Tour events. He didn't specify what prize options, but you definitely got the impression that it was at least there would be something for those folk that might not be able to make it to a legit Vault Tour event,
So my
which is
question,
pretty cool.
so my question here is, are are they allowing you to spend Amber Shards, or is this
Yes.
okay? So this is
Yes, that was part
specifically
of the question.
the like that prize vault, but maybe not with the Vault Tour branded stuff in it.
Maybe, or maybe some of the Vault Tour branded stuff. I mean, it wasn't so specific in terms of exactly what was going to happen, but the question was essentially, hey, I'm going to have all these Ember Shards, and I can't get to a Vault Tour event. What the heck am I supposed to do with these things? And there will be options for you. So if you're in a similar situation, maybe your schedule doesn't line up and you can't get to these things, or maybe none of them are anywhere near you. It sounds like FFG is going to try to do something that will allow you to spend your Ember Shards. It would be cool if there would be a way to do that online as well. Maybe not for Vault Tour stuff, maybe some alternate things. Maybe you have to pay cash for shipping on top of it, but it would be nice for folks that can't necessarily get out to these events to be able to do them. Or maybe you get out to an event and the stuff that you wanted is sold out, and there's no other event that's going to be anywhere near you. It would be cool if there was a what they're going to be doing where there's non-Vault Tour events that you might be able to pick stuff up at, but B, maybe they can do something online, like an online shop where you can redeem stuff. That would be super cool, especially after the vault. I don't know if they're going to rotate these on a yearly basis, probably of like a season or something. But after one kind of ends and they go into the next tour, it would be cool to be able to buy some of the older stuff.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting that with the kind of expressed interest in having an online store that you can redeem these, and they'll figure out some sort of solution eventually. I mean, it is a little bit, it's a little bit rough to try to expect people to get these shards, kind of get this reward for playing the game, and then not really, and then they're like, well, I don't live anywhere near Indianapolis, so there's no way I'm making it to Gen Con unless I'm going to Gen Con.
Right.
Or these events in Georgia or the ones in Toronto and stuff like that. Like, it's just, that's tough. So I do think that
Yeah.
that at some point they have to be at least talking about it. There's no way that they're not.
Right. Well, and even from just an economic standpoint, this is the equivalent of in-game currency, and you want to kind of make sure you have ways to take that currency out of the public, out of the players, out of the players' hands. And if you have players that can just sit there and hoard these, not deliberately, but just for lack of purchasing options available to them, then they're going to show up and be like, "Yeah, I'll take 2 gaming tables, please." And you're going to be like, "Oh, we're not planning on that," and now you're in a little bit of a tight
Yeah.
spot. Or they can just create a rush on something, which I guess is maybe a good problem to have in a way. But if they come in and they clear out something, and if they finally do make it to a Vault Tour and they can wipe out like all of the playmats, then you're going to have dissatisfied customers, and that's not a great thing either. One person walks away with every playmat, which I guess would be a weird thing for that person to do. But I guess,
Right.
I mean, you never know.
Yep.
So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of alternatives they have outside of Vault Tour, outside of non-Vault Tour events as well, and just what they're going to do from there. So the next question, we talked about this a little bit last episode, I believe, because we did hear information about it, or maybe we just had a side conversation. I can't remember now. Everything's blending together.
No, we definitely did talk about this.
Okay.
We talked about this in our Age of Ascension episode.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, that's right. I remember now. So someone asked, what is the future deck legality for old decks? Is there going to be a rotation? Are they going to be able to use these things in tournaments? Is there going to be some sort of split thing where you have old decks and you have new decks and they can't necessarily play in the same events? And they said, no, absolutely not. Their intention is for all sets to remain legal in perpetuity. So you get a Call of the Archons deck and you go to a tournament, you're fine. 6 years later, you're at a store and you see they have a dusty Call of the Archons box up there. You pick it up, you sit down and participate in the Chainbound event, and you're good to go. It doesn't matter that it's 6 years old at that point. You're going to be good no matter what. And their idea is that stronger decks will get chains and kind of get pushed out of playing. I'm really interested to see what they do about like time. Will chains expire over time? If I go to a couple tournaments, rack up some chains on my deck, the new set comes out, I shelve my deck, and then a year later, I'm like, oh, I haven't played this deck in forever, I'd like to take it somewhere. Is it still going to have the same chains it had originally when I stopped playing it, or will they fade after a certain amount of time? Are they going to ever have like a reset button? which would have been a fantastic question to ask in this AMA if I had thought about it then. So I guess I'll have to wait for the next one.
Yeah, I can't imagine that this is the last, AMA that Alex is going to do.
Right. Maybe I'll just throw something at them on Twitter and cross my fingers.
I mean, they've been actually pretty responsive about stuff, so I mean, it's probably not a terrible idea.
Absolutely. So that's really cool, though, that you could have this weird sealed meta where you can almost do like a chaos sealed, where everyone just, you get like a big grab bag of a ton of different boxes from different sets, and it's a luck of the draw as to as to which one you get.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting, unless there's a set that is just universally panned as awful, and then you'd be like, oh man, I hope I don't get that one. I would then get that one.
They kind of have to do that. Well, I mean, I guess they don't have to do anything, but with their commitment to reprinting cards throughout other sets, they do have to maintain that legality in some capacity, right? Like, and then they definitely don't want you feeling bad about your purchasing.
They could make it really obnoxious and be like, okay, only decks, because you don't have constructed, so it's not like you can say, okay, well, Time Traveler is legal because it was reprinted in the most recent set. Like, no, it's just you can only use Time Traveler if your deck contains Time Traveler, and you can only use your deck if it's from the last 2 sets that came out. And that would be, they could do that. I mean, that would be meh, but I much prefer their idea of like, nope, we are just going to make everything legal for all time, no matter what. And like, I think that will help police power creep to an extent, because they're always going to be balancing against their older sets. And it'll be interesting if they get to the point where there is kind of unintentional power creep, where they say, oh, you know what? Turns out that like Witch of the Eye was good, but not like super overpowered. So maybe we'll make a Witch of the Eye that has 4 power on it. And then like, how will if that natural power creep happens, what'll happen to those older decks? Will they be maybe not retired officially, but functionally?
Right.
So it'll be interesting. And then obviously nothing's set in stone. A year from now, 2 years from now, they could be like, okay, guys, so our design philosophy has changed so substantially that older decks they don't really have the same place. So we're going to have to say there's like a legacy version of the game that incorporates all of those decks, and then a more modern version of the game that is just from this particular point in the game's history onward. So I hope they don't. I hope they don't get to that point, because if they get to that point, the game will be miserable by necessity. In order to make that decision, the game will have to be miserable for at least a little while to make them make that decision. So I hope they don't get to the point where that's necessary, because that would be that'd be poopy. So I asked, will there be updated materials and guides for marshals and judges in terms of rules and fractions guides? I'm really interested in marshaling, judging events. I think it's really cool. It's something I didn't really get much of a chance to do with Magic. Didn't really have time or anything. It's a very involved process for Magic, and there's a lot of rules involved with Magic. And I don't know, man. I don't necessarily have the head for it. Or the time. But I'm really interested in it for Keyforge. And so I was really curious, like, hey, if your opponent accidentally draws an extra card, what is their intention for you to handle it? You could do it a couple different ways. Magic has their way of doing it. I'm sure other games have their way of doing it. So I really wanted to know, like, is there any material that tells us how they intend for these things to be dealt with when they come up in competitive play? And they said that they're working on what they call their fundamental event document, which is basically going to be what I was asking for. At least I hope. They didn't really clarify exactly what's going to be in it, but I imagine it's probably what I'm looking for.
I imagine they're gonna use that across all of their card game stuff.
I mean,
I don't think this will be Keyforge specific necessarily.
I think
because I think marshals and judges is universal between all of their organized play.
Right. From what I've seen, it is, but they can't. Obviously, some of the stuff can't be universal. I imagine as much of it that can be universal will be universal. So they'll kind of copy and paste for like sections that apply to every Fantasy Flight card game, and then they'll have a secondary section that's Keyforge specific, Legend of the Five Rings specific, Game of Thrones specific, Netrunner that stuff.
That's fair.
So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, you just brought up a sore spot there.
Hey man, they have competitive Netrunner.
No, they don't. Not
Well,
anymore.
it did exist at one point in history. Both the original and the remake.
That is true.
So that's cool. So it'll be interesting to see exactly not only like what they're going to do with it, but when it's going to come out in terms of like in the Vault Tour. I mean, the Vault Tour events are supposed to be a little more casual, but still, like what their intention is for it and what the actual things, what the actual decisions are going to be within the document itself.
Right.
And we'll get to it a little bit later, but it won't really be tremendously relevant for a little while. There's another question later in the AMA that kind of talks about when that might be something we need to see. So we'll get into that. So the next question that came up in the AMA was, will we see full art promos? And Alex gave a little bit of a cryptic answer, but if you read between the lines, it was probably a yes. They probably have an announcement coming soon, or they're working on drafting the wording of an announcement. But I imagine that in the next couple news cycles, next couple Tuesdays for them, we'll probably see something about full art promos, or it might be something that they have a big reveal planned, so they don't want to really give half the information when they have a whole big reveal planned for it. So I understand the cryptic answer for something like that. But the exciting thing is we will be seeing full art promos. Or something along those lines. It might not be full art. It'll be some type of promotional thing. But again, we talked about this in an episode past a little bit. How would you even do a full art promo since the decks are supposed to have the deck name in the bottom?
Yeah, I think with the Archon cards, and you kind of had brought up a while back with the idea that you could, like, you're going to have to check these decks in anyway when you go to an official event like a World Tour. So someone's gonna have to validate these decks, and if you're playing with a promo card, like, and they looking at the deck list and they're like, yeah, well, Orbital Bombardment full art is in this deck, so, but Orbital Bombardment, is in the deck, so okay, cool, like, go have fun. I'm pretty sure that they'll probably allow for that. It'd also be a neat, situation of, like, maybe, I'm gonna finger quotes here, fixing decks where you might have damaged a card. You get like, oh, I got the full art promo, and just replace that with
That'd
that.
be pretty cool. I mean, I think that like for the logistics of it, you have your you would have to bring the originals with you and just show like, hey, 1-to-1 ratio. Here's here's all of my full arts, and then I'm gonna match them up with their original so that you can see these are all the cards. The contents are all here from the original deck.
Right.
But I'm excited.
I mean, that's consistent with their rules on proxies for damaged cards too.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I think it'll be really interesting. And it'll be really interesting to see how they do them. Like, will it be the same border and they just push the art out and kind of eliminate the text box? Will they do something super, super fancy that I can't necessarily think of because I'm not an artist? I'm really excited to see what they do with it. I mean, is it even going to be a full art promo? Is it going to be foils? Because they didn't really say full art promo specifically. That's what it was going to be. They just said cryptic yes to some sort of promotional version of cards, and it was the questioners wording that mentioned full art promo. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, if it'll be something other than what we've seen before.
Yep.
So the next question someone asked was, how will power levels work for organized play? And I lifted this pretty much verbatim. The question, by the way, there's a little bit more detail to it. They were concerned, like, are you going to need power levels? Is there, like, going to be a minimum? Is there going to be a maximum? What relevancy do power levels have for organized play? Will you be locked out of things if you do or don't have an appropriate power level with your decks? So this is pretty much verbatim what Alex said as an answer. Currently, we are keen to make all events as open as possible. So for the first season, at least, there will be no power levels required to take part in events. For example, Storm Prime Championships. However, moving forward, we will be able to set entry requirements for different tiers of tournaments, and this is an exciting future for Keyforge. We can also use power levels as a cap to events. Currently, chain-bound events don't allow decks greater than level 4, and this is a tool we will continue to use at various levels of organized play. So all of that comes down to, there's actually a couple interesting tidbits in here. The first thing that kind of jumped out at me is he mentioned first season. So that kind of lumps back to what I was talking about earlier with chains falling off of decks after a certain amount of times. I wonder if they'll reset after these seasons. This is the first I've kind of seen about there being a season, and maybe I'm just late to the game and they've mentioned seasons multiple times, but I think this is the first I've noticed it in terms of a wording. So that's kind of interesting and kind of cool.
Yeah, I think that's I think they've hinted at that in the
Yeah.
past. So
I mean, they got to do something organized play wise. So, but they also mentioned that at least for the first season, there's not going to be power levels. So it's not something we have to worry about right now. I get what I take away from this is that they really want to spend some time feeling out how organized play is going to work, how competitive play will go before they really start locking down processes and decisions as far as how they're going to run things, which is good. I kind of like that they're taking that organic approach to, like, well, let's see how it goes and then we'll make changes, instead of, okay, we're going to make these things hard and fast. Okay, it's been 2 months and those were terrible decisions. Let's pivot and go the other direction and do this thing, and then they swing too hard in that direction and they have to turn back and make half the changes. So they've got this pendulum effect of going back and forth between some of their decisions. That's just makes organized play unreliable and frustrating for players. I like that they're just taking a sit back and watch approach initially before they make any decisions about that. And they're giving it time to kind of develop, which is cool.
yeah, just making a way of feeling it out and not overcommitting.
Yeah. I didn't know that chainbound events don't allow decks greater than level 4. I knew that the thing kind of stopped at level 4, but I didn't realize that was just like, nope. If you manage to rack up that many chains, your deck is plenty good and you don't need to be playing it.
I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of the idea too, right? Is like, okay, this is what they were meaning by like you're dominating the meta, and we don't want you to dominate the meta with that one deck. Please switch it up. So instead of just kind of working on the honor system of like, oh well, now you know, you're at -4 cards at the start of your hand, but that deck's still winning. Like, okay, like this is just them being like, okay, you've had your fun with this deck. We appreciate it. Please bring it to a world tour, because it clearly is that good. But play something different so someone else can have their moment in the sun, kind of thing, which I think is, it seems a bit controversial. I at least I've kind of maybe heard whisperings of it being kind of controversial, but like honestly, I think it's cool. I think it does a lot for local play,
Well,
and not
power level 4 is like what, 24 chains or something?
well, I mean, you could in theory get to power level 4 and have those chains kind of broken up. Like if you had gotten to, because every time you hit a chain level, you gain a power level.
Right.
So
So to hit power level 4, you need 19 chains minimum, and you get 4 chains. So you get 4 chains if you get 4 wins in a 9 or more player / 4 round chainbound event. So assuming you play once per week at an event that has 9 or more players and has 4 rounds, and you get 4 wins every time, that's what, for 5 weeks of play.
yeah, I mean, if you're playing at a store once a week
So that's
and you're
like,
playing Chainbound,
yeah, so that's 5 weeks of playing with the same deck over and over and over again with increasing chains. If you get 5 weeks in and your deck is still like crushing people, it's probably not a bad idea to maybe retire it. It's kind of like playing a fighting game with your friends and you just pick Scorpion and you just keep doing the get over here move over and over, and you keep doing the uppercut. And they're like, okay, you know what? You've beaten me over and over and over again with Scorpion. Can you maybe, like, I don't know, choose literally anything else?
to kind of amend what I was saying earlier, you can split it up, especially as like you can lose chains, but yeah, it's every tier in which you hit, right?
Right.
So once you hit 13 chains, it's not like 13 chains all time. It's just like once you hit 13 chains,
Right,
you
right,
lose
right.
up
So if
that
you can
power level.
gain, lose, and it's always the highest your deck was ever at. Is
Right.
my understanding.
So
If I'm wrong,
yeah,
definitely let us know. My understanding is even if you get all the way up to 24 chains, power level 4, and then you just lose over and over and over again and go back down to 0 current chains, it'll still be power level 4.
right. The way I had mentioned it earlier was not entirely correct, but that is how that works.
Gotcha. So moving on to the next question. Will multi-deck variants be available in the GEM software? GEM software, that's the, for those who might not be in the know, that's the software that stores use to run events. And so what they're talking about here about multi-deck variants being available is that currently the GEM software doesn't allow a single person to have multiple decks registered for an event. They can only have one deck per person. So if you're doing a gauntlet, or if you're doing survival, gauntlet is where you bring, say, 3 decks, and every time you win, you retire that deck. And then survival is the opposite, where you bring 3 decks, and every time you lose a deck. So you kind of keep playing until you run out of decks. So if you wanted
Yes.
to play either of those formats, or if you wanted to play Triad's one where you bring 3 decks and your opponent can kind of you have to you do a best of 3, and you end up having to win with, I think, 2 of your decks because they can choose to ban the 3rd deck. So one way or the other, all of these are multi-deck variants, and right now you can't do them in Gem, which is frustrating because some of these are really cool ideas. But they said that they're working on that. They said that the software is in beta right now, and they're kind of constantly working on updates for it. So hopefully in the very near future, they're going to have that, which there's a couple takeaways from that. First and foremost, that they're constantly and currently working on it. And that they're really right on top of getting all this out.
Yeah, I see the issue, like the not the issue, but like the thing that people are kind of like looking for is like they want to do like chain bound, survival or adaptive or things like that. And right now, yeah, you can't. You can really only do solo play, uh, chain bound and sealed, which are not chain bound, but Archon and sealed. Seeing chain bound sealed events is still like weird to me, but that sounds like a lot of fun in a, in a really weird way.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll be good when they get the software. But what that kind of tells me too is if they're working on it, like I wonder what else they're going to be adding into that. Like what further functionality are they going to be putting into Gem beyond maybe just the tournament schedule, if anything? Maybe it's literally just going to be tournament stuff. It'll be interesting if they have other functionality that they're planning on adding into it.
Yeah.
Even potentially more of a direct link between the phone app and Gem itself would be cool. Like you could check in remotely almost from your phone along with the deck that you want. I also, as a side thing here, I found out that multiple people can actually scan the same deck into their phone app. It's just the first person to do so is the one that gets the ember. Um, and at first I was kind of like, well, that's weird, but I guess it's to help facilitate trading decks. But also, if you just want to track a deck and see how its wins and losses are doing, you can just scan your buddy's deck and then like see how he's doing at a tournament as it updates,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. Sorry.
You can also watch people's decks in the app as well.
Right, which is really neat. So I thought that was pretty cool. So the
Yeah.
next question is, why isn't there a world championship this year? And Alex said that they want to give give the game a chance to grow first. They want to, so the very first world championship that they want to do, they want it to be an invitational. So they want a bigger pool of people to invite for that first world championship, that first invitational. And the only way to get that bigger pool of people is to let the game go for a little while, which also makes sense to me because they probably don't want to rush in and then have a bunch of the much lamented one turn kill decks all show up and have the whole thing look like a joke. I doubt that would happen, but they don't know that ahead of time. When they're printing the game and testing the game, they don't know what's going to happen. So it makes
Right.
sense for them to hold off on a championship until they kind of get a feel for the waters, so to speak.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen in the meantime for events and how they're all going to lead into that invitational. I'm wondering how you become an invitee. Is it just winning a whole ton? Is it maybe doing a podcast with your buddy? I don't know.
I think they did say it is through like tournament wins.
Yeah, but they didn't say it wasn't through podcasting. So,
That's true.
just saying it's possible. All right.
It is
So you're
possible.
saying there's a chance. Um, so that was cool though. It'll be cool to see that, and with the invitations, that's obviously going to be with a bigger pool means a wider selection of talent and decks. It'll be really interesting, especially come a year from now, depending on how many sets come out. Probably at least one more past the upcoming set here. Um, what the card pool is going to look like and what that event will look like with all of those decks available. So it'll be really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, a majority of those, at least the big American ones, are going to be during that Age of Archon time
Yeah. So
ish, somewhere around there, depending on when they release. I mean, at least Gen Con's going to be during that time.
right. So it'll be a really really cool thing to see turn out.
Yep.
Um, Someone asked if there's going to be specific support for league play, where you kind of roll over results. So instead of just one single tournament, you roll over results week to week to week, and then it's almost like a multi-week tournament kind of thing. Um, and they Alex mentioned that it's going to be coming, but for now, stores can just use their organized play kits as prizes for the leagues that they run. So not really a big deal.
Yeah, some places around here have been doing similar things where they're talking about like, or they've been doing like which house is going to win this week, and they've been like tallying the house wins that way. I know that they released like they actually did release like a poster that you could post for that, and I think that's how some of them have been running leagues. But definitely would be interesting to see some official support for leagues.
Right. So this next question is interesting. Because there's a couple different interesting bits to it. So, are one turn kill decks bad for the game in terms of a new player experience? And Alex said new players shouldn't often run into them since any deck capable of a one turn kill, and I should specify they probably mean reliable one turn kill, not like Magic Christmas Land one turn kill decks where you just happen to get the absolute perfect hand and it's a 1 in 100 chance of that ever happening again, or 1 in 1 million chance of that happening again. So these are reliable one turn kill decks that people try to go on Crucible and use. And so Alex is saying that new players shouldn't really run into these since these decks will quickly accumulate chains, and as a result, they'll get played less often. I imagine most one-turn kill decks probably can't operate with 3 cards on their one turn or 2 cards on their one turn once they have enough chains. Well, that's not how chains work. So I imagine that most of these one-turn kill decks aren't going to be able to go through 7, 8, 9 turns in a row of being down a card or potentially being down multiple cards, depending on the number of chains they have. So I imagine that one turn kill decks are probably glass cannony in regards to chains to an extent. And if they are strong enough to just fight through and get 24 chains and just be crushing people consistency, then we're right back to where we were talking about your friend playing Scorpion all the time when they're playing, or Eddie Gordo when they're playing all the time in their fighting game. And you're just like, oh, come on, man, just stop it. Just pick someone else. I think it's important to note too that we're probably talking about like non-chain bound. Like you're probably not going to be going to your local gaming stores Keyforge night week in and week out with your one turn kill deck and going up against new players. Honestly, new players are probably not going to have Archon events at their local gaming store be their initial experience. They're probably going to open a deck and play casually. They're going to learn. They're going to play a couple games with people. They might do sealed ones. They're probably not going to be sitting down across from someone in an Archon tournament at their local game store and then getting crushed by a one-turn kill. And even if they are, that's one game out of one night. And
I agree. Like, there's no way that they're sitting down and you're gonna hit 3 1-turn kill decks
back to back to back, right? Unless you have the worst luck with your meta, which I'm so sorry for you.
I mean, yeah, like that's the thing too. Is like this is just another one of those like latent magic mindsets that kind of comes in, where people are like, oh, is this going to be ruinous to the our local our local meta, because there's a 1-turn kill deck in the meta, and it's like, okay, well, it's eventually going to go away. And then on top of that, it's not like you can construct your deck so this isn't like showing up to Friday Night Magic where everyone has $300-$400 decks, like,
right.
And you're like, well, I just bought my my Planeswalker pack,
Planeswalker
and
intro
I'm showing
deck.
up to play Friday Night Magic.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I understand. So just to clarify, like, I'm not definitely like saying like, hey, there isn't legitimate concern for like 1-turn kill and how that can affect your meta. But I think it's another one of those, the Crucible gives this false sense of this is a very prolific deck that's out there, and then and it's just because
Yeah, and it's just
this is where
not.
you see it the most.
Yeah, you're not you're playing as random internet strangers, and these are you're potentially playing against any possible deck that's ever been opened because they could just lift it off of a page or off of the database and claim it as their own for Crucible and play it. So you have a you have a much better chance of running into one of these decks on Crucible than you ever will in person, unless we're talking about regionals, nationals, worlds. Obviously, those bigger tournaments, people are going to be bringing out all the stops, but the odds of you running into one turn kill decks in the wild, especially as a new player, like if you're playing in your weekly chain bound event, you're probably not coming up against a one turn kill. You might, but again, that's one game out of the night, big deal, one round out of the night. If you're playing casually and someone pulls out a one turn kill deck, knowing that you're new, or if you mention the new, that guy's a total jerk. Like, just don't play with him again.
And
hopefully they're not the only other player.
Yeah, and like, and this is like, here's our perspective. Like, we have approximately, I'm gonna throw out this estimate of 10 people, because we have a bunch of regulars and there's a bunch of people who kind of show up and in and out. We have a meta of like 10 people, kind of growing. I think you have the closest to a one turn kill deck out of all of us,
And it's not even close.
and it's like a one turn key deck.
Yeah, it's like I could do like 1.5 keys in a single turn with that deck, and that's if I get really lucky off my draws.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there is this perception that the OTK decks are everywhere, and I just don't think that they're as prolific as it appears.
It's like hearing stories of people getting mugged in New York City and then being afraid to leave your hotel room because you might get mugged just going to the Dunkin' Donuts next door. Like, okay, you know what? You do get mugged in New York. It happens. It's possible. You're probably not going to get mugged walking 5 feet down the sidewalk.
Right. Anyway, we've talked this one to death, so let's
That's fair.
move on to the next one.
I got another hour in me on this one if you want.
No, I'm kidding.
A lot of it will be the same material. So on to the next question. What formats will we see for major championships? Alex said that they want to provide options, but at the same time, they want to kind of restrict things to a degree so that players will have a consistent experience globally. So a player who wins the nationals in Spain and a player who wins the nationals in the UK aren't going to have shouldn't their intention is that those players should not have a drastically different experience to win. They should be similar formats or from a small pool of available formats, and that's probably to kind of curate the world or whatever event, the major championship event experience, so that like, oh well, this person just got lucky in a sealed and that's how they got to worlds, whereas this person went through like multiple rounds of triad and they had to really push themselves to get in. This guy just got dumb luck. So I think that that's probably what they're going for there, is that kind of limitation but not completely strict.
I think they'll probably split those two. I think you'll have sealed tournaments because it's just a different play style, right?
Totally, and
Like,
it's more luck dependent. There's skill.
right.
There's obviously skill, but at a certain point, you take two players of equal or comparable skill, and it's going to come down to who got a luckier deck, and as well as who gets luckier draws.
It'll be interesting to see how that all turns out.
Right. And they did say that there's more info to come. So it's very vague, but it's deliberately vague because I imagine they haven't locked things in yet. And there's nothing quite definite and they're still figuring it out. I imagine a lot of what they're trying to figure out is the logistics and just what formats are going to be appropriately competitive. Because like I said, they want to offer, it sounds like they want to offer more than one format as an option. So that if your region, prefers a particular format that's really popular, that might be available, as opposed to no, everyone has to do triad, everyone has to do archon, whatever adaptive, whatever format. I don't get the impression they really want to lock it in, at least yet.
Right.
Maybe they change their mind down the road, but which is interesting. It's kind of cool that they're like, no, we want to kind of give a little bit of variety if at all possible. So the last question that was in here was, what does the tournament track for organized play look like? It's actually available. If you go to the Fantasy Flight Games news area, they talk about the future of organized play is one of their news articles.
Yeah, we had talked about this a little bit
Yeah, we kind of
back in the
briefly talked
beginning.
about it. We have the seasonal kits, open play nights. They're talking about how they're changing the naming conventions of their different events and everything. It looks like at the lowest level, you're going to have store championships. Then you have above that prime championships. These were previously known as regionals. After regionals, it goes to, well, sorry, after prime championships slash regionals, it goes to grand championships, which are, or formerly known as nationals. It says in here, grand championships are high level events that take place only once per year per nation or territory. They feature top level prizes and they qualify the top 4 players to the game's next world championship, which is pretty cool. After that comes continental championships, which are international events. And then after that comes worlds. So it looks like the path here is that you will use store championships to kind of hone your deck, test yourself, get your competitive skills up to par, and then you'll go to, and I'm going to use the original names for these instead of the new names. You go region, nation, continent, and then world, which is interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty standard, but it's kind of cool
yeah, agreed.
that they have it like worked out a little bit what the path is. So even though they're not going to do a worlds until next year, they've still got, like you still know your path and you know what to look out for events.
Yeah, it'll be kind of fun to watch this play out through the rest of the year and then see what happens next year, especially since that's when, worlds, like they actually plan to have a worlds. So this is definitely going to be, like we kind of said earlier, the run up to, 2020. You're going to see. So one thing that I think they've alluded to is that they're going to try to have more or not chain bound events, but Vault Tour events next year. They, or I might have even heard that there was something about this year too, but I'm not entirely sure about that. Again, send it in. We'll talk about it next week. But I think this was them trying to just do that initial run to make sure that they kind of have everything in lockstep. I'd actually prefer them to do this at a slower pace than they would, or then to just like fully get out of this excitement and just be like, this is a great time. This is we're gonna have all these cool prizes and we're gonna have all these events everywhere, and then it kind of ends up like the card game equivalent of Fire Festival.
Oh man, ouch.
So like, well, that's what I want. That's not what I want to see, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, I've been a person who's been involved in LAN parties forever, and you get like those public LAN parties. You have that like situation where it's just like a lot of hype driven around this game or this LAN party, like all kinds of cool stuff's gonna happen, and then when you show up and it's like, oh, this was not what I was expecting at all. You kind of end up leaving that party a little underwhelmed. So that's what I don't want them to do. I'd rather see them take this much more reserved approach and get it right the year the game comes out, and then 2019 just crank it out of the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd rather see them take some time and get it right, just like you said. Totally on the same
Yeah.
page. I can wait for something solid and thought through instead of trying to like I want something now and I want it. I don't care if it's half baked.
So, moving on to the last bit here, as we said at the top of the show, we still have some tokens to give away from Strategic Dino. They are his stun tokens. Probably just do the same thing, and we'll just pick from the same list that we had from the previous giveaway. We'll just take the person out that won,
Yeah.
and so same deal. You can either share the post on Facebook or retweet it using the hashtag keychains dino, and then we'll randomly pick somebody from those lists and send them out immediately after that. What we'll probably do is we'll probably wait for both to get picked, and then I'll just send them out to the winners the same week.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with our recording, we won't necessarily know and be able to announce the winners
Right.
until both of them are are determined.
So again, like, you can find Steve over at strategicdyno.com. Like I said, I placed a big order with him because I really like his stuff. So I want to see him keep getting that support there.
Definitely. This is limited to the U.S. only.
Correct.
Sorry. Partially shipping, and also I think that contest stuff is really weird when you start crossing borders. And we're just big dummies, and we don't have the brain power to figure that stuff out. So apologies to anyone outside of the US. Hey, feel free to still share, retweet, our stuff. We just can't give you anything for it besides our love and affection.
And still feel free to buy stuff from Steve at Strategic Dino, because he's still
If you know what, if you don't win the giveaway, I say you just go and buy stuff from him out of spite to us. Like, I'll show you guys. You don't want to give me stun and armor tokens. I'll just go buy my own. I don't need you guys for anything.
Amber shards and
empower yourself by
by
buying your own tokens. And I think
so again, come like us on Twitter or Facebook at Keychains Pod. And then if you have any questions, want to tell us how we mispronounced your city's name wrong, or anything like that, you can send us an email at keychainspod@gmail.com. Do you have anything else you want to mention, Ryan?
No, I mean, you can hit us up on Twitter. I don't know if you mentioned Twitter.
I did mention Twitter.
I think, yeah, because that was in the giveaway. So I suppose, maybe I should have been listening to what you were saying instead of playing on my phone.
Also, I mentioned it in the closing as well.
Hey, do you think we should tell people that they can follow us on Twitter?
Sure, why not? Why don't
guys? You can follow us on Twitter at KeychainsPod. So, do that.
Yeah, Instagram's coming.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Take care.